Go.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Legal Time with Connaughts once again. As you know, in this program, we specialize in giving you a specialist advice on immigration issues generally. But we had a discussion with our team for the past few weeks, and we had a lot of questions from our clients in recent days, where clients sometimes were involved in something we call criminal activities, for example, or they had issues with road traffic incidences or road traffic offences. And by the time they come to us, it's too late because they have already been caught by different immigration provisions where they can't continue with the immigration application. So we decided to have someone very special today with us who can tell us how these situations can be avoided to begin with, rather than by the time they come to us, voters already pass over their heads. So today we have Jerry Campbell with us. Jerry has been a chief investigator with Scotland Yard for over 30 years. He heads our investigation department at Connaughts Law, which was started 3 months ago. Jerry has also, we have been honored that he's been nominated for MBE recently by the Queen, Her Majesty. So welcome, Jerry, to our program.
Thank you.
Jerry, a lot of times clients come to us and, for example, they had simple road traffic accidents, or they had overspeeding charges against their names. And when we look at their circumstances, we get surprised because it started with a small fixed penalty notice, they ignored it, and eventually they ended up in court that they had a conviction from the court. And as small as this would affect the immigration status in the future. So, for example, their indefinite leave applications, their nationality applications. Then obviously there are serious crimes where someone is involved in obtaining some counterfeit documentations or any travel documents, IDs, etc. Obviously that we will come to in a minute. But what would you suggest that if someone is involved, let's say in as simple as a speeding offence, how can they minimize the effect of this issue?
I mean, generally speaking, a speeding offence in the UK will attract a small fine and some fixed penalty points on a driving licence, depending on how fast someone was going. So, I mean, the recommendation there is that if you do receive a ticket for speeding, that you pay the ticket within the allotted time period. Generally speaking, that will be 28 days. If you pay the fine within 14 days, then the fine will be reduced by somewhere in the region of about 50%. But whilst the absolute advice here is do not ignore it.
Yes.
Take prompt action to deal with it. If you're not sure about how to deal with it, then get bona fide, genuine legal advice from someone who's qualified to give that advice. But under all circumstances, do not ignore the fixed penalty, because if you do, it will result in a summons to court, and if you're prosecuted and convicted at court, then it is a criminal conviction.
And that would stay against their name for how long?
Well, essentially, a criminal conviction will remain on someone's record for life. It is there. However, there is a law called the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act in the UK, which says that people don't have to, if they are convicted, don't have to quote that conviction for employment purposes, for example.
Sure.
However, there will be times where an employer or some other application process will say that the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act does not apply. But we'll go back to a principal point of advice here, is that do not ignore it because you don't think it's serious, because it's only a traffic matter. Traffic offences can take someone into the court system and can lead to a criminal conviction. It is a criminal offence.
Excellent, thank you very much for that. Obviously, the Rehabilitation Act applies to immigration applications as well, as you know.
Yeah.
If someone's been convicted, they will have to wait for a certain period of time before they can make an application if it's an outside court conviction. Another serious issue we face when we give advice to our immigration clients mainly is if they have produced any documents, the Home Office things or Secretary of State things that they are counterfeit, or for example they are forged documents. We had a huge issue of the TOEIC examinations in recent days.
Yeah.
It's been settled now.
Yes.
One of the lead cases was been dealt with by Sharia Khan, our head of immigration. So in these type of matters, what can they do to make sure that they provide any documentations to make sure, how can they check these documentations, especially if it's obtained abroad? What documentations can they provide to the Home Office to show that they have done everything they possibly could in their hands to make sure they've obtained the right documentation which are not fraudulent, and to avoid criminal conviction basically in these type of matters?
Yeah, I mean, the first, my first point has absolutely got to be: do not travel on false documentation. Don't, do not try or attempt to enter the UK using false documentation. Anybody who does that is committing a serious criminal offence in the UK. If you want to travel to the UK, if you want to come and live and work in the UK, then you have got to make sure that you're travelling on the right documentation, which is issued by the right government agencies in your respective home countries, or the countries from which you're resident in or are a national of. So you have got to exercise the right, what we would call due diligence, the right process to double check that your documentation has come from a genuine government source. If you're buying it off a travel document off someone in a marketplace or through a third party, or directly at someone's home address or business address for a very small amount of money, then the fact of the matter is it is a fake document. If it sounds good, it looks good, then the likelihood is it's going to be a fake document. So it's part of your job to make sure that you're travelling on genuine government issued documentation which gives you the right and entitlement to enter the UK as a visitor, and it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you have got the right authority to live and to work in the UK.
Excellent, thank you. We were discussing recently domino effect of these type of documentations. Even if they get away with it at the first instance, anytime in the future, whenever they get caught, it will have, you mentioned, a domino effect where everything that relates to that document in the future they obtain will have to be taken away, including any nationalities they have obtained of their families based on the documentations they obtained, for example. Can you explain a bit this domino effect they can have?
So if someone were to travel into the UK, a foreign national was to travel into the UK using a forged passport of whatever description, they then subsequently apply for indefinite leave to asylum status and then indefinite leave to remain in the UK. If that indefinite leave to remain is granted, they're granted British citizenship, they're granted the permission to live and then to work in the UK, and then they found a family based on that, then if it subsequently transpires that the documents that they entered the UK were false, i.e. they were forged documents, then you quite rightly describe this domino effect, because it has a knock-on effect onto their indefinite leave to remain, which can be withdrawn by the UK government at any time. It then has an impact on the right to live in the UK the rights to employment status as well. So it can undo that whole nationality pyramidal collapse.
Excellent. Thank you, Jerry, for that. We are getting a lot of questions. A lot of common questions we get is, for example, husband and wife both are, let's say, migrants in the UK, or they both are working in the UK on tier 2 visas, or any other visas for that matter. And let's say they have a raw where, police is called in, or some domestic violence issues. They ignore it for the time being, but obviously it is something that will affect their future applications for the immigration, from the immigration perspective, and otherwise in terms of having criminal convictions, etc. So any advice in this matter, where if there is an issue like this, what exactly these people have to do?
Yeah, I think the starting point we've got to be quite clear about is that any form of domestic violence or domestic abuse in the UK is a serious criminal offence. It's a serious criminal offence. The police right throughout the UK take a zero tolerance approach to it. So the offender, in the vast majority of cases, will be arrested, and there will be a police investigation. In the vast majority of cases, it will result in the offender being taken to court as well. But to be absolutely clear, domestic violence and abuse in the UK is a very serious offence. If you're involved and the police are called to your home address or somewhere in the street, wherever it happens to be, but it's more likely to be someone's home address, and you're arrested and taken to a police station in the UK, you must seek legal advice. It cannot be a case of, I'll answer any of the questions that the police want to so that I can get out of this police cell or this police station as quickly as possible. Okay? No matter where you think you're in the right, the wrong, you must seek legal advice. You will be asked at the police station, when you've been booked in, the process of booking in takes place, you will be asked if you want a solicitor. My advice to you is that you must ask for a solicitor at the earliest possible time, so that you've got the right legal advice when you're answering questions. Because for you, it can have quite far-reaching consequences later.
Excellent. Another common question we're asked is, for example, someone is stopped by the police, let's say for whatever reasons, maybe they're drinking on public transport, for example, and a lot of times police give them what they explain as voluntary caution, so they accept caution and they won't be charged, or further investigations will be done against them. Now these cautions again is something that would affect the immigration applications from immigration perspective. Any advice to these type of people, if they are given this option of voluntary caution, should they accept it? If they don't, what are the consequences?
Well, I mean, the stark reality of it is that voluntary cautions and warnings are given on a very regular basis for a whole range of what is regarded as relatively minor offences. But on balance, yet again, you have got to understand what the consequences of doing that are. And I would always say this, even having spent 30 years in policing, is that you should seek legal advice and properly understand what the implications are for you and for your family in doing that. No one, even in policing or through the criminal justice system, will ever criticise you for wanting to seek legal advice so that you can make the most informed decision that best suits you in the circumstances. But I would say, sorry to interrupt you, but it's back to my very original comment, is that in obtaining legal advice, it's got to be dealt with as quickly as possible. Situations can't be ignored, because they will, from a minor problem, will become a very serious problem if someone ignores it.
Excellent. So you have heard Jerry, with his 30 years of experience as senior investigator. Please seek legal advice. No one will criticize you for seeking legal advice. This is your right in the UK. Mm-hmm. So if you are involved in any of these issues we have discussed, make sure you seek legal advice. Jerry, my next question, how can we help them if, for example, someone is involved and they want to seek legal advice? How can, as Connaughts, as you are head of investigation, how can we help them?
Well, we would always seek to, at Connaughts, there is there's a great team of exceptionally experienced lawyers, and now we have got the expertise then of an investigation team led by two very experienced senior former Scotland Yard officers. So at Connaughts we've got this really unique combination of experienced investigators working hand in glove with experienced litigators as well. That means that Connaughts clients get the best advice that is on offer in London. It's very unique. No other law company in London is operating in that way. So we will give the best advice, obviously based on the client's instructions, the best advice that is available in how to deal with whatever the circumstances are. Let's be quite frank, whatever the circumstances are, there are no jobs too large or too small for Connaughts to deal with.
Excellent. Another question we have is someone was involved in a road traffic accident. I understood from the question they basically ran away. It was a car that is parked, they hit the side mirror, they ran away. And now they have been contacted by the police, maybe a camera, maybe someone has reported them, etc. Mm-hmm. And question is, what should they do? I mean, obviously you can't be very specific in giving this advice, but generally, contact Connaughts first of all, and we can advise you specifically in detail. But generally, what exactly?
Okay, the stark reality of it is, if you're driving a car, you have a traffic accident which results in damage, you've got to stop at the scene and then report that within 24 hours. That's the law. Okay, if you have an accident and someone is injured, it could be someone travelling in your car, someone travelling in someone else's car is injured, you have got to stop, exchange names and addresses and insurance details at the time the accident has taken place. So it's immediate. Okay. If it's a damage-only accident, for example, a wing mirror smashed, then you've got to stop, exchange names and addresses. But that is a must. Yeah.
Excellent. So with injuries, it's immediate, and if it's not an accident that involves injury, report within 24 hours.
Yeah, if it's a minor accident, then you've got to stop and exchange names and addresses. Okay. Mm-hmm. If it's damage only, stop, exchange names and addresses, and insurance details. Okay. If it is it results in an injury to someone, then that has got to be reported to the police. But if you have a damage-only accident and run off and don't exchange names and addresses with the owner or the driver rather of the other car, then that is a criminal offence. So if anybody has done that, then they're contacted by the police. Then my advice would be contact Connaught Law to represent you before you make contact with the police. Connaught Law will make that contact with the police on your behalf, because the police will want to conduct an interview but the interview is under criminal caution, and that is with a view to gather evidence, potentially to prosecute someone and put them into the criminal justice system.
Okay. Other than that, what we've discussed so far is related to problems they will have in the immigration application. Now coming directly to your department, which investigation and white collar crime, what exactly can we do for our audience? What can we tell them about this department, which we have started 3 months ago?
Well, I did mention in one of my other previous responses that there is no job or there is no case or investigation which is too small or too large for Connaught law to be involved in. The stark reality of it is that clients will get a first class quality of care, interest, investigation and support by the combined Connaught law team. So the absolute crux of this, the really important part of this is always, and I sound really repetitive, but it's about getting the right advice before engaging with the police or before engaging with other investigative departments like the UK Border Force, the Immigration Service, HMRC, other government departments. You've got to get the right legal advice right from the very start. And that's before you're interviewed, before you're engaging with investigators. Get the right legal advice to start with. I'll go back to it. There is no case too small for Connaught law to be involved in because we care about people. We've got the right experts, whether it's through investigative work or through legal work. We've got the right team of experts to manage any case.
Excellent. And a lot of times we are asked if a matter involves criminal issues, then generally in a lot of matters legal aid is available. Now of course we don't provide legal aid, it'll be all conducted on a private basis, and there will be some cost involved. So what would you advise people that why should they come to us rather than going to someone who can provide them legal aid?
Okay, well the start, I think one of the starting points is whilst the company doesn't necessarily undertake legal aid cases, the pricing structure will be very sensible, and our initial point of advice is free, and from there, depending on the conversation with the client, then for certain cases we might come up with an agreed fixed price approach to the particular case, depending on what is likely to entail, what is likely to involve. And we can work out a payment plan and a structure with clients as well. But the person in the driving seat making the decisions essentially is the client. So the client, with the best advice available through Connaught law, the client is in the driving seat. The client is the decision maker. But the stark reality of it is that we care about people. We want to make sure clients have got access to the best available advice on the market in London and throughout the UK. Connaught law is in a position, I think, to do that.
Excellent. And a lot of times, from my experience, I see that a lot of issues can be dealt with before even the investigation starts, or someone is contacted but not being investigated. And this is when obviously these options are not available. This is when we can add value, where we can probably help them sort out the issues before they even start. And obviously with an experienced team like yours at Connaught Law, it'd be very important. Well, you'd probably be the best person to have on board if these type of issues arise.
No, we would say definitely. Having spent 30 years policing and being an investigator in London, then there is nothing. Well, the stark reality of it is there is nothing that a client might tell us that is going to surprise us. And you get that through 30 years of policing in London. The stark reality of it is that there is no such thing as an off-the-record conversation with a police officer.
Or any
investigator. So whether it's, we've mentioned Customs and Revenue and Customs, HMRC, Home Office, UK Border Force, immigration officials, there is no such thing as an off-the-record conversation. And once you've said it, you can't undo it. So the stark reality of it is, if you're getting phone calls, you're getting letters, or you've been summoned to court, or you've been asked to go for what is called a voluntary interview with officials, then you must seek legal advice. Come to Connaughts Law, we'll give you the right advice from the start. Before you start completing any form of official documentation, before you go to informal meetings with officials, then you must consult and seek legal advice. There is no such thing as an informal meeting. There is no such thing as an off-the-record conversation. So please do not get caught up in that trap. Okay? Get legal advice. Get it early.
Excellent. Another question we have is from someone, maybe slightly off the topic, but I think we can answer that question. Mother's worried that father may leave the country with the child, so she wants to stop that. But obviously, that's the family side of it. But from the criminal side of it, father does that without the consent of the mother, when both of them have the custody of the child together at the moment. And we see these cases a lot in a lot of communities, yes, for example, in our giving immigration advice as well. If that happens, what she can do in terms of, is it a criminal offence, is it abduction, or is it just because he's the father he can do that?
Okay, no, it's not because he's the father.
Or vice versa, of course, if mother does that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, the crux of this really relates to which parent or parents have parental responsibility for the child.
I think in this case both, because they're still together and the father's name is on the birth certificate. So.
Okay, but whether the father's name is on the birth certificate or not does not mean he has got parental responsibility for the child. Now, a child, in accordance with the UK law, is a person under the age of 18 years. However, we recognise the real risks and the dangers and the impact that can have on a family if a father takes a child out of the UK. But there are certain measures that can be taken, prohibitive steps orders and other orders, which are issued by the Family Division of the High Court. I think my recommendation now really would be that the concerned parent should come in, get the legal advice, because generally speaking, there is associated with such cases, then the likelihood is there will be a history of other problems in the relationship, and this is very unlikely to be a one-off matter. But the stark reality of it is that serious criminal offences can be committed if a parent removes a child from the jurisdiction or from the UK for a period of over 30 days, results in a very, very serious offence. And depending on how the removal was conducted, then the likelihood is that serious offences will take place. So, yet again, come in, seek that advice now, because we know and understand that the likelihood is that there's other clear issues happening within that relationship that we can help with, but help with now. We can prevent this from happening in the first place.
Excellent. Another question we have from a client is similar to a few of the matters we've dealt with together. Home Office came to their house, they've taken the documents, and one of the documents was a false travel document. Now, no one has come back to them. It's been a couple of months.
Yes.
Yes, it's been few months. No one has come back to them, and they're asking if they have to write to the authorities to get those documents. Obviously, they're counterfeit documents. Or
Yes.
they can contact them or just wait and see what happens.
Okay, I would, in the circumstances, it's been several months, wait, sit tight, get your legal advice early. But the stark reality of it is that the immigration authorities and or the police will want to interview that person. So they will definitely at some point want to interview that person. That interview will be conducted under a criminal caution. So I think it's really sensible now that that the person comes to Connaughts Law, gets the legal advice, and then client in the driving seat, making the decisions. We give them the best advice possible about when is the right time to contact the immigration authorities, or wait for the contact to be made. But at some point the contact will be made.
Excellent. I think, Jerry, this is all the time we had for today. Again, thank you very much for your time. I know you're a busy man. I think your advice has helped our viewers very much. Thank you very much once again. And now that Jerry is part of our team, we will be conducting these programs quite often. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. You can contact Jerry directly. You can contact them via our team at Connaughts Law, and we will pass the message on. Any issues you have, we're happy to address. Like Jerry said, there is no matter too small or too big for Connaughts Law to deal, whether it's any sort of offence related to immigration, or it's a criminal offence on its own, or any other matters you have. Please get early immigration advice, early legal advice, and we'll be happy to help. Thank you very much. Thank you.